In 1966, America built the most extreme racing series on Earth and put its richest prize fund behind it. The rules fit on a napkin. Any engine, any size, turbocharge it if you dare, aerodynamics completely free, just 2 seats, covered wheels, and basic safety kit. It was called Can-Am, it was faster than Formula One, and it paid better too. Detroit's finest, Texas oil money, Hollywood glamour, all of it poured in, because this was going to be America's playground. Then a small team from a British workshop, led by a New Zealander with a limp, walked in and took the whole thing hostage. Between 1967 and 1971, McLaren won 37 of the 43 races held, and every single championship. In 1969, they did something nobody in the series ever managed before or since. They won every race of the season, all 11. These are 10 numbers on the McLaren M8B story and the men behind it. And by the end, you will understand how completely the takeover worked. Because the most desperate thing America's home series ever did was not building a faster car. It was reaching for the rulebook. Number 1. America deliberately built a series with no rules, then met the one team you should never give freedom to. Can-Am launched in 1966 under Group 7 regulations which barely deserve the word. Unlimited engine capacity. Unrestricted aerodynamics. The organisers wanted monsters, and they seeded the field with the biggest prize purses in road racing, north of $470,000 across the season by 1967, and climbing towards $1 million by the early 1970s. The magazine writers called it the richest road racing series in the world. The calendar told you exactly who this series was for. Road America in Wisconsin, Bridgehampton on Long Island, Laguna Seca and Riverside in California, Mossport and St. Jovite in Canada because the name Can-Am meant Canadian American Challenge Cup. Big blocks, big crowds, big checks and film stars in the paddock. Freedom like that rewards one thing above all, engineering discipline. And the first champion was actually British too, John Surtees in a Lola, which should have been the warning shot. Even that first season, the little McLaren outfit was there, learning, finishing second at St. Jovite and winning nothing. Nobody was prepared for what would arrive the following year in orange. Number 2. The team was founded by a man doctors once said might never walk properly. Bruce McLaren grew up in Auckland, New Zealand, and at 9 years old he contracted a hip disease that put him in hospital care for the better part of 3 years and left his left leg permanently shorter. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. He also became, at 22 years and 104 days old, the youngest man ever to win a Formula One Grand Prix, a record that stood for over 4 decades until Fernando Alonso finally broke it in 2003. He learned his trade inside the Cooper Works team, the same giant killing garage that had put Jack Brabham on top of the world, and in 1963, while still driving for them, he founded his own outfit, Bruce McLaren Motor Racing. Not a rich man's vanity project, a working engineers team run out of modest premises with borrowed ambition. Bruce was the designer, the development driver, the test engineer and the boss all at once. And men who worked for him describe a man who would drive the car in the morning and lie under it in the afternoon. His crew had a mantra and it hung over everything they built. Be there, finish, be competitive, in that order. Notice what is missing from it. Winning is not mentioned. The theory was that if you turn up to every race with a properly engineered, properly tested car, winning takes care of itself. Remember that boring, sensible little slogan, because it is about to conquer a continent. Number 3. 1969 was the only perfect season in the history of the series. 11 races, 11 McLaren wins, from the opener at Mossport in June to the finale in Texas in November. Nobody else won anything. Bruce took 6, his fellow New Zealander Denny Hume took 5, and in 8 of the 11 races, the 2 works cars finished first and second. The American press took to calling the cars the Orange Batmobiles, which was affection and despair in the same breath. The car that did it was the M8B, and it was almost insultingly simple. An aluminium big block Chevrolet stretched to 430 cubic inches, around 630 horsepower, a Hewland gearbox, and a huge wing on struts mounted directly to the rear suspension uprights, so the downforce pressed straight onto the tires instead of squashing the springs, an idea borrowed from the American chaparrals and executed with more discipline than its inventors ever managed. Designer Gordon Coppock did not chase revolution. He refined the previous year's car until nothing on the continent could live with it. Only 2 race cars and a spare chassis ever existed, which means the entire perfect season, all 11 wins, came from a fleet you could park in a double garage. And here is the detail that tells you everything about the team's character. With total domination guaranteed, the 2 drivers still raced each other to the last round. Bruce took the title with 165 points to Denny's 160. 5 points between teammates after a season in which the rest of America never saw the front. Number 4. The famous orange paint was a television weapon. McLaren's papaya orange is now one of the most recognizable colors in motorsport, and it was chosen for utterly cynical reasons by an American lawyer. Teddy Mayer, Bruce's business partner, pushed the shade because it would show up brilliantly on the black and white television screens of the era and, in his own logic, loom large in the mirrors of rivals. The color made its Can-Am debut at Road America in September 1967. And only the following spring did it spread to the team's Formula One cars, which means the most famous livery in modern Grand Prix racing was born as an American television gimmick for an American audience. Think about what that means. While the American teams were painting their cars for national pride, the little British team was painting theirs for the cameras and for psychological warfare. They were not just winning the races, they were winning the broadcast. Number 5. It became a show with its own name, and the box office was astonishing. The American press eventually surrendered and gave the domination a title. The Bruce and Denny show, they called it. 2 New Zealanders alternating wins in front of crowds who had come to watch Americans. Sports Illustrated described the opposition with one brutal word. The money was the punchline. In 1967 alone, Bruce and Denny split $165,000, over a third of the entire series jackpot. By the middle of 1971, Denny had banked $464,000 in Can-Am prize money, and Bruce $315,000, nearly $800,000 between the two of them, and over $900,000 once the team's other drivers are counted. And McLaren has been open about where it went. America's richest series paid for McLaren's Formula One program. Every American spectator who bought a ticket was, without knowing it, funding the team that would torment Ferrari for the next half-century. On top of that, McLaren sold customer cars to the very rivals it was beating, 14 of them at $15,000 each, sold out before production even started. They beat you on Sunday and invoiced you on Monday. By the age of 31, the limping engineer from Auckland was reported to be worth $1 million, almost all of it earned out of America's pocket. If you saw my video on the 1966 Brabham, the one built around the engine America threw away, Denny Hume is the same quiet New Zealander who won the Formula One world title in Jack Brabham's car in 1967, beating his own boss to do it. That is the second video in a row where the world's establishment gets dismantled by men from a country with more sheep than people. This is not a coincidence. It is a theme. Number 6. The British invaders were secretly running a Detroit engine company. Here is the fact almost nobody knows. The McLaren steamroller was not powered from England. In November 1969, the team incorporated McLaren engines on 8 Mile Road in Livonia, Michigan, right on Detroit's doorstep, where an ex-drag racer named George Bolthoff built those aluminium big block Chevrolets, developments of the same family as Chevrolet's own all-aluminium ZL1. The engines that had carried the team that far were the work of Gary Knutson, who had also sorted the fuel injection, so the muscle behind the orange cars was American-built and American-fed at every stage. The chassis thinking, the aerodynamics, the discipline came from the British workshop. The thunder came from American muscle, prepared better than America was preparing it. That is the uncomfortable truth inside this whole story. Can-Am was not lost because American hardware was inferior. The Chevrolet Vive 8 was the best engine in the series, and everybody ran it. America lost its own series because one small team simply did everything else better. Testing, preparation, reliability, and the humility to treat a race as an engineering problem instead of a show of force. Number 7. America's wonder weapons kept arriving and kept failing, so McLaren got the best one banned. The resistance was not lazy. Jim Hall's Chaparral team from Texas was the most inventive constructor in America, and its 1969 car, the 2H, was so radical and so wayward the paddock came to call it the Great White Whale. World champion John Surtees was hired to drive it. hated the handling, and eventually walked away from the team. A tiny outfit built the Thai 22 partly from titanium, a car so underfunded the team could not afford a spare chassis, and its driver Jackie Oliver still hounded the McLarens to second place 3 times, surviving a full airborne backflip at St. Jovite along the way. And in 1970, Chaparral produced the single most notorious car in Can-Am history, the 2J Sucker car. 2 auxiliary fans, driven by their own little snowmobile-style engine, sucked the car onto the road through plastic skirts, generating grip that did not care how fast you were going. Jackie Stewart drove it, then Vic Elford, and it qualified up to 2 seconds faster than anything else on Earth. It never won because it kept breaking. But it frightened the champions so badly that McLaren led the protest to outlaw it, arguing the fans were movable aerodynamic devices and a debris hazard. The SCCA banned the 2J after 1 season. Savor the irony. The British team that thrived on America's total freedom lobbied to end that freedom the moment an American had the better idea. Domination, it turns out, is defended with lawyers as well as lap times. Number 8. In 1970, the founder was killed and the team won the championship anyway. On the 2nd of June 1970, Bruce McLaren was testing the new M8D at Goodwood, the quiet Sussex circuit where the team did its homework, when the rear bodywork tore away at around 170 miles per hour on the Levant Straight. The car spun off and struck a marshal's post, and Bruce died at 32 years old, in a car with his own name on it, developing the machine that was supposed to defend everything he had built. What happened next is the most extraordinary chapter in this story. Denny Hume was already injured, his hands burned in a methanol fire while practicing for the Indianapolis 500. The team was leaderless and grieving. The Can-Am season opened barely 2 weeks later, and they went anyway. Dan Gurney, America's own great constructor driver, stepped into Bruce's seat and won the first 2 rounds before a sponsorship conflict forced him out after 3 races. Peter Gethin took over and won another. And Hume, a man the press called the Bear, drove that whole summer with his burned hands and won 6 races and the 1970 championship. The team mantra did not bend even for death. Be there, finish, be competitive. The team also did not fall to pieces afterwards because Bruce had built it not to. Teddy Mayer took over the running of the company, and the name on the factory door went on to win Formula One championships, Indianapolis, Le Mans. Every trophy McLaren has lifted since 1970 belongs partly to this chapter, and so does every papaya car on a modern grid. Number 9. When an American finally won America's series again, he did it in a McLaren. By 1971, the domination had become an open joke. McLaren's own team manager, the same Teddy Mayer, greeted the arrival of Jackie Stewart's rival Lola with the words, "I am glad Stewart is here. It was getting to be a little bit boring." The winning team was publicly asking for stronger opposition. Stewart, a Formula One world champion at the absolute height of his powers, threw his Lola at the orange cars all summer and managed 2 wins at St. Jovite and Mid-Ohio. Every other race fell to McLaren, and the title went to Peter Revson, an heir to the Revlon Cosmetics fortune, a man whose middle name was literally Revlon, and whose family had cut off the money when he chose racing over lipstick. 5 wins in 10 races made him the first American champion of America's own series in its 6-year history. Look at that sentence carefully. It took 6 years for an American to win the thing, and when he finally did, he had to do it in a British car as a McLaren employee with the kiwi of a dead man from Auckland still painted on the nose. Number 10. It took 900 turbocharged horsepower to end the streak, and then a rule change to end the winner. McLaren was never actually out-engineered by America. The dynasty ended in 1972 when Porsche arrived with the turbocharged 91710 run by Roger Penske, around 900 horsepower, and even that needed misfortune because Mark Donohue was injured in testing when eerily his rear bodywork failed at speed just as Bruce's had. His stand-in George Follmer took the title, Porsche won 6 of 9, and McLaren read the future clearly. The team packed up its final Can-Am car, the M20, walked away from the series that had made it rich, and poured everything into Formula One. In 1973, Donohue returned with the 91730, over 1100 horsepower in race trim and closer to 1500 with the boost wound up, and won 6 of 8 almost unopposed. Then came the final twist, and by now you will recognize the pattern. For 1974, the organizers introduced a fuel consumption rule, officially a response to the oil crisis, and almost everyone in the paddock read it as a device to legislate the unbeatable Porsche out of the series. It worked. Porsche and Penske walked away. The 1974 season limped through just 5 races before the rest of the calendar was scrapped. Jackie Oliver's shadow collected a hollow title, and the series that was built on the promise of no rules died, killed in part by the rules it swore it would never have. And in all the years it ran, through all the horsepower that followed, nobody ever matched what the papaya cars did in 1969. One perfect season, and it belongs to McLaren forever. One last footnote. In March 2026, at the Amelia Island Concours in Florida, one of the 2 M8Bs ever raced took Best of Show honors in the sport category, on American soil, surrounded by American classics, more than half a century after it emptied America's wallet. Some cars stop winning. This one apparently has not. So that is the story of the M8B, a series with no limits, met by a team with no weaknesses. 2 New Zealanders, a lawyer with a paint chart, an engine shop hiding in Detroit, and a slogan so boring it beat a continent. Be there, finish, be competitive. America built the perfect playground, and for 5 straight years the toys all belonged to somebody else. Tell me in the comments which Can-Am machine deserves its own video, the sucker car, the titanium TI-22, or the 1,100 horsepower Porsche that finally ended the party, because your comments picked this video and they will pick the next one too. Subscribe if you want to see it.